We're going to be going over some inventory management systems, software options today, and decide kind of some pros and cons from both. These are going to be the systems that we primarily work with here at Cin7 Solutions. There are a multitude of other systems that you can work with. These are just the ones that are either the most common or, in my opinion, the best. With any pros and cons list, this is going to be mainly my opinion. So if you have any questions, I think if you want to learn more about any of these systems, definitely reach out to us here at Cin7 and we can take a look at your needs on a case-by-case basis and see which system will be the best for you. First system, probably one of the ones that a lot of people are the most familiar with, going to be QuickBooks Enterprise. Probably the biggest pro of it is it's really easy to adapt to and really easy to use, especially if you've never used an accounting software before. And it's good for businesses with a little bit simpler processes. You're just wanting to start out tracking inventory. It can be a good place to get started. As a really easy to use UI interface, it's like I said, very user friendly. With QuickBooks being primarily an accounting software, it has very excellent accounting functionality. And with that, it has very robust reporting capabilities. The large user base for QuickBooks makes it very easy to find tech support, find solutions online, and it does have some advanced inventory features. It's very user-friendly, very easy to set those up, essentially toggling a button on and off, and it walks you through pretty well how to set all those up. Some cons of QuickBooks Enterprise, because every system has their cons. There's been some recent large price hikes. It is a local system, and this is one of those things where, depending on how you look at it, can be a pro or a con. But in this day and age, as more people are working remotely, more people want to have access to their systems at all time, view this one as more of a con. That local system, so it does require having a separate server to access it remotely. That can either be one that the QuickBooks or Cin7 hosts for you, or one where you put it on your own network. But it does require logging in through a VPN and onto that server to access that system. With QuickBooks too, you're constantly needing to search for workarounds. So the system is one of the things that makes the system so simple, or the ability to be so simple, is it's locked down. There's not really much you can change. If QuickBooks says it's this way, it's going to be that way. Very few options that you can change. So that causes, if you have a process that maybe falls out of line with what the system is set up to do, you end up having to create workarounds. And with workarounds, obviously, right, it's not what that system is set up to do. So it's almost like putting a Band-Aid on a problem and just doing something to make it work. Usually whenever I'm dealing with clients and consulting with them, I figure out from immediately that they're going to need a workaround. It's not going to be something that I suggest, and more these days, especially with e-commerce involved, a lot of people are having to do workarounds for the processes, for their inventory processes that QuickBooks can't handle. Building off of that, some of the inventory functions in QuickBooks that they do have your basic what you would expect from an advanced inventory system to have: lot numbers, serial numbers, multi-location, barcoding, a warehouse management solution. But they're very, very simple in their functionality, and they're lacking from a lot of their competitors. One of the examples is QuickBooks cannot handle alphanumeric barcodes. And in this day and age, I couldn't tell you the last time I've seen a barcode that wasn't alphanumeric. So that's one of those things where it works, but you have to make it, again, go back to workaround. So you have to do a workaround to get your barcodes to work for you. It's also only compatible with Windows OS. So if you have some of the people in your system that work on a Mac, then they would have to go in through a remote server to be able to access the system, and then it can cause everything to go slow and go buggy. But with all that being said, QuickBooks, it is a good product. It has a really large user base, and it's a good one to get started on, especially if you already have QuickBooks. It's really easy to go in and just make a copy of your file and then start testing out those inventory features to see if that's something that you even want. Our next system is QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online is depending on how you look at it, it's the newer, better version of QuickBooks Enterprise. When it comes to inventory, I don't know if I can say it's the better one as a standalone. But QuickBooks Online does have some very, very limited inventory functionality. Really good for like your mom and pop. Like my mom has a store where she sells candles. I put her into QuickBooks Online because it was a great system for her to be able to at least to get it off a spreadsheet and be able to see what she's doing. She didn't really need complicated inventory. She just needed to know if she had it. Building off that, it's a very user-friendly UI, very easy to adapt, especially if you've used QuickBooks Desktop, or if you haven't used any accounting software before. It's really easy to get in there and just kind of see where things are. It's cloud-based, which means, again, you can access it from anywhere that you have an internet connection. It does have a large user base, so that makes finding that tech support real easy. And again, it is an accounting-focused software versus inventory, so it has really good accounting features. And then probably one of the biggest pros with QuickBooks Online is it knows that it can't do everything, right? So it has a large number of app integrations. Last time I checked, there was over 750 that were in the QuickBooks App Store that were supported. You have a number of cons with Online as an inventory system. It has very simple inventory functionality. It can't do warehouses. It can't do barcodes. This inventory valuation summary that you see on the screen here, that's about as advanced as we can go with the inventory. So we don't have barcodes, we don't have lot numbers, we don't have locations. But again, if you just need just a simple thing, tell me my inventory, tell me how much quantity, and tell me what that value is, then it can do that for you. There is minimal customization options with QuickBooks Online whenever it comes to inventory. There's not a lot of settings that you can change relating to inventory. You basically can either turn it on or turn it off. There is a limited number of users that are available. I could be wrong on this, but I know one of the, I think the largest one maxes out at 25. So if you have the need to have more than 25 users in your system, then you are unable to use QuickBooks Online. Biggest theme with any QuickBooks product is it requires a lot of workarounds. One of those things that makes it be such an easy system for everyone to use for your needs as a functional inventory system. As for moving on to our next system, I kind of like to say QuickBooks Enterprise, QuickBooks Online, they're the past whenever it comes to inventory, and there's a lot better options that are out there. And then we're going to move into some of those better options at this point. So our first option, or first in the better option section, is going to be Katana, Katana ERP, Katana Cloud Inventory. It's gone through a couple different name changes. I just refer to it as Katana. Katana, it's very easy to use and very quick to implement for an inventory system. I've had clients that have just been in a spreadsheet and they looked at it, and within 5 minutes they could start completing orders inside of Katana. It doesn't take a long time to really get everything set up. You have the ability for unlimited SKUs, integrations, and users. So the way their pricing structure is set up are not factored into it. This option, and then the next ones we'll go over, are great options if you need to have multiple people in your warehouse accessing the system, and you're going to be over that 25 limit for QuickBooks Online. This is a great system to use that for. Really good customer service as well. One of the things that makes it quick to implement is that it's got a very user-friendly interface. One of my favorite features of Katana, probably one of my favorite pros, is the system is set up where you can drag and drop things for the order that you need to process something. So let's say you have 5 orders in your queue, then you get a rush order that comes in. You can move that new rush order to the top of the queue, and then it will take your show you what you need to purchase in your inventory to make that order today, or what you need to build to make that order. And it's color coded too. I know especially whenever you're in a warehouse, you might be looking at the numbers quickly, but if you see colors, you see green, that's a good like indicator. You have all the advanced inventory features that you need. So barcoding, serial lot numbers, warehousing. With the barcoding, one of the it can do alphanumeric, and one of the features that I really like read QR codes. I know a lot of places are starting to use QR codes today to get more information in there, and these guys are set up for that. Also has a shop floor application, so like a warehousing application for your users in your warehouse. They just have a certain number. They just can see what they need to see, right? They don't have access to that whole system. We'll move on to some cons. So Katana is it is an inventory system. So that being said, it doesn't have accounting. It doesn't really have accounting functionality. With Katana, there are a lot of integrations, but there's a limited number that are actually native. So ones that are built out and supported by Katana. There's also some features where whenever it comes to kitting products, whenever it comes to assemblies and things like that, that they fall a little bit behind on in their competition. That's not to say that it can't do everything, but it just might not be as smooth, or if whenever you're getting more complex builds, there might be some struggles that you have. Probably the biggest con is that the QuickBooks sync for Katana is it's only one direction. So that means it's only sending things to QuickBooks. It's not taking things back. Our next system is going to be Cin7, a Cin7 Core and Cin7 Omni. Just briefly hitting on Cin7 Omni, your higher level enterprise solution. I think I've only had like one client that came by and a good fit for it. And they had multiple warehouses with their own EDI keys that needed to be set up that were all over the world. And they all needed to talk to each other, and each basically needed to run their own independent system and still talk with each other. So it was a very complex system that needed to be set up, and that kind of gives you an idea of what Omni is for. The primary system that we work with here at Cin7, though, is going to be Cin7 Core. So Cin7 Core, one of the best things about it is there is a huge number of native integrations. As I obviously talked about with Katana, how there's not that many native integrations. With Cin7, there's a lot of native integrations. So they're going to be making sure those integrations are constantly working. So you don't run into a situation where the third party who actually started it stops supporting it. There's a lot of really, really robust inventory features, a lot of different costing methods, barcoding that can be done, different ways to set up our bill of materials with automations, say ability to create production bill of materials, so you can see how much your machine costs are going to be to make a product, and you can have it like timed. You can have options bombs where you can have different pricing based off of each option that is selected. It does have a very intuitive UI. Each different process that you do, it essentially gives you steps on that screen, so it can show you what you need to do, right? So it's going to show you, if you make a quote, then it needs to go to a sales order. It needs to go to the invoice, bringing everything through that process there. It doesn't try to hide any of the whenever you pull up like an item, right? It shows you in the sidebar everything that's related where you can add details for that item. It's the capability to have really advanced manufacturing and warehouse features. So if you're needing to, track production schedules and set those up, you need to have advanced warehouse capabilities. This system will do that for you. It also has extremely accurate COGS calculations. So Cin7 Core also has an integrated MRP, so a materials planning function, a B2B portal, and a POS tool. So all these are going to be add-ons to the system, but the fact that we can easily add these in there is great. Being able to have a B2B portal that you can set up where you can have customers go log in and just place their order, and then it will put it right into your system. The POS tool is really good too for a front of house. And then one of the other things that I didn't put on here is if you have other vendors or vendors or suppliers or anybody in your ecosystem that uses Cin7, you guys can link together. All the systems just read each other together. So if you have a third-party warehouse that you're using or a co-manufacturer, and they use Cin7, you guys can link the systems together and it can work out really well. With Katana, Cin7 is also primarily just an inventory system. So it does require a third-party option, whether that be Xero, QuickBooks Online. And with that, but one of the pros of the Cin7 QuickBooks sync is that's a two-way sync. So if your accounting user in QuickBooks updates something related to an order that is in Cin7, it's going to send the information back to Cin7. And same thing if somebody goes in and updates something in Cin7, it will go back to QuickBooks. So it's really good to have those two systems talk together, right? You want to have your inventory system and your accounting system talking back and forth all the time to make sure everything is correct. And then Cin7 also has some really robust job costing for your production inside of this system. Some of the cons of Cin7 Core, depending on how you look at it, does look to have a higher price point than some of the competition. Again, price is always going to be relative. Reports in Cin7, they are a little bit complicated to learn and initially get set up. That's probably the biggest learning curve. And then there are limited customization options with Cin7. It's set up where there's a lot of options for each process, but if you have a unique situation, your production with your manufacturing, if it doesn't fit one of the process or one of the buckets that Cin7 already has set up, you might not be able to do it. As I alluded to earlier, it doesn't have a strong accounting functionality, so you would need to use like a third party, like a QuickBooks Online or a Xero. And then Cin7 also does have a limited CRM functionality. All right, our next is going to be Odoo. So Odoo is actually a new partner with Cin7 Solutions. We're very excited to have them on. One of probably the biggest pros is, as I was mentioning with Katana and Cin7, they don't really have inventory function. Odoo is a full ERP, so it's going to have those inventory functions and it's going to have everything in the system together. It is a modular system, so you can pick and choose what functions you need active. The way they do their pricing is you're charged per user. So today you only need inventory and accounting, but tomorrow you need 5 other of the add-ons in there. It's all going to be that same price, so it makes it really cool to test and see what all you can do. It does have pretty advanced inventory functions, just like Cin7 and just like Katana. It's going to handle all of your barcoding, your warehousing, warehouse management, MRP, B2B, pretty much, and everything you can think of for inventory. Whenever we're looking at these, Cin7 and Odoo are very comparable. Probably the biggest difference would be that Odoo is a full ERP, so it's going to have the accounting built in, and that can be a deciding factor. Some people don't want to switch between systems. Probably one of the biggest pros I've heard though for Odoo is that it is very customizable. So the whole system is on an is entirely open. It's got an open code base, so anybody can go in there and update it. You can easily find people. I think it runs on Python. You can easily find people to go in and run and see the entire customizable Odoo. We already talked about the accounting. It's got a very robust accounting functions. And then there's an ERP system that's built for growth. So it's as you are scaling up like a tier base of what ERP you should use based off of revenue or how complicated your processes are. And I usually go and say, your base is going to be QuickBooks Online, very simple, mom and pop. Like I said, my mom uses it. It's a very easy system. Then you move into your enterprise, and that's going to be where you're getting a little more complicated, but you don't really have a need for a full separate inventory system. And then once you go Past that, then you're going to go to like a Katana system, and then a Cin7 system, and then if you want a full ERP with advanced inventory functionality, then you're going to be looking at something like Odoo. Cons though with Odoo, pro and con, customizable, right? Because it is so customizable and it has that ability. It's really easy to, if you get in there and try to make a super custom system for yourself, it's really easy to break it, right? Because you make it so custom, there might not be any training resources for you. It might be very hard to find a consultant or find somebody that can train new users in that system. So that's going to make where you have to do more work to set up those SOPs and more work to train. You might lose somebody for 6 months potentially while they're learning your custom system and figuring all the ins and outs of it. It's a very complex setup. A lot of the processes in there are a lot different than what other accounting systems use and other inventory systems use. So getting that initial setup can take a long time to accomplish and can be very complex and can be very costly. Tying with that is that learning curve. So because it is so different than a lot of other accounting systems or inventory systems that people might have used, as far as the processes and the back end that's happening, there is a steeper learning curve than you might see with some other systems. And then probably the last con is, it's a full ERP and it is built for growth. There is still going to be a point where you're going to max out that system, right? And it's going to be where you might not be able to use it. That's all of the inventory softwares that I have. But I did want to give you guys a little bonus kind of pro and con software. Our next one is MISys Manufacturing. So MISys Manufacturing is a lot of times it's grouped with inventory softwares. Frankly, I guess people don't know what's out there. There's difference, right? So MISys is a manufacturing software. So how we talked about how Odoo, Cin7, and Katana all have MRP capabilities. So MISys is a full MRP system, right? So it's going to be that all that planning, all that production runs. It's for your warehouse to know what needs to be done and how much it's going to cost. With that being said, it doesn't. One of the cons we have to just say from the beginning here, since we're talking inventory systems, is it's not a true inventory system. It does do have a lot of the same capabilities, and sometimes this ends up being what clients need because what they're working on. Those pros, though, very advanced manufacturing features because that's its focus. A warehouse, I'm running a production line. This is going to do everything that you need because it is their focus. Really, really advanced costing capabilities. So they are, to my knowledge, out of these options that we presented today, they are the only option that allows you to create custom costing, inventory costing. Even by default, there's multiple costing methods to choose from. They have LIFO, FIFO, average, and then average by job, average by lot. So it's a really advanced on the costing and really good for manufacturing, especially whenever you can take and do and say this lot or this production run cost this much versus this one. Every account that I've talked to that has used MISys has loved having those functions. It has excellent integration with accounting software. So this is the only software that we've gone over today that will integrate with Sage products. So it'll integrate with Sage Intacct and Sage 50, as well as QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Enterprise. It is a modular system. So if there are functions or things that you don't need to have, you don't have to get them, right? You only have to pay for what you actually need to use. So cons with this one, it does require integration with an accounting software because there is not accounting functionality in here. There also isn't the ability, because it is a manufacturing system, you don't have the ability to do your order processing won't necessarily happen through here. Another con which I could put on here is that this one also does have a higher price point whenever you look at it in terms of it's excellent at doing what it needs to do. That is all I have for today. If you would like Certum to do a review of your inventory processes and inventory functions, always happy to see what we can do to help to reach out. We have all of our contact information here.
That is all. Thank you guys for joining.